Okay, I'm going to continue reading The Horn God of the Witches, Chapter 10, Herne the Hunter, and Ellen of the Ways. The figure known as Herne the Hunter has been part of modern witchcraft from the very start. Gerald Gardner called himself a British example par excellence of a surviving tradition of the old god of the witches. In 1959, the meaning of witchcraft since then, Herne has most often been equated with uh, the Gaulish Cernunnos, with many authors arguing that the two figures are the same god with different names. I disagree with that premise, but I understand why many people continually conflate the two deities. Books about male pagan deities have always been in short supply, and one of the earliest and most influential of those very limited number of books was The Witch's God by Janet and Stuart uh, Farrar. In the book, Cernunnos and Herne share a chapter and are basically written about as the same deity. I understand the confusion because Cernunnos' uh, association with all things Celtic and British's large Celtic population in antiquity, the idea makes some sense. But while a few ancient images of Cernunnos have been found in Britain, he doesn't seem to have been a particularly popular or even well known god there. The two names also sort of sound alike when the drops when one drops the us from Cernunnos. But other than that superficial similarity, their antlers, the two deities have very little in common. Unlike Cernunnos, whose name and vis- uh, visage appear on antlers and statues, the first mention of Herne occurs in William Shakespeare's play The Merry Wives in Windsor, most likely written between 1597 and 1599, and first mentioned in print in 1602. By that day, England had long been Christianized, suggesting that even more tenuous link to Cernunnos. In that play, Herne is more ghost than deity and is written about in a way that's drastically different from how most people view him as a deity. There is an old tale goes that Herne the Hunter, sometimes a keeper of Windsor Forest, doth all the winter time at still midnight walk around about an oak with great ragged horns, and there his blasts the tree and there he blasts the tree and takes the cattle, and much uh, uh, milky kind yield blood, and shakes a chain in the most hideous and dreadful manner. We have heard of such a spirit, and well, the super tedious, idle headed, ill received, and did deliver to our age this tale of Herne the Hunter for a truth. It's possible that Shakespeare made up the figure of Herne specifically for his play, but I find that unlikely. The Merry Wives of Windsor is full of references to places and names from the area, which suggests Shakespeare knew Windsor well, or at least had an informant who did. In addition, there are several folk tales that mention Herne, though it's possible that they were created in reaction to Shakespeare, along with the remains of the tree that was associated with him in England's Windsor Forest. For most of the last 400 years, sightings of Herne in the wild, uh, sorry, in the Windsor Forest have been similar to his appearance in The Merry Wives of Windsor. He's been more ghost than god. Folklore about Herne from the Berkshire area next to Windsor Forest had generally focused on the hunter as a figure to be feared, not worshipped. To call Herne the local boogeyman of the area would not be an exaggeration. But the gods of the old religion often became the devils of the new, so it's worth looking at the history of Herne to discern both his character and where his origins might lie outside of Shakespeare's quarrel. There are several versions of the Herne story. The one I'm most familiar with appears in William Harrison's uh, Annensworth, Annensworth's 1805 through 1882 novel Windsor Castle, published in 1842. In that version of the tale, Herne is a gamekeeper at Windsor Forest, employed by the monarch Richard III, 1452 through 1485. Herne was a favorite of Richard, and as a result, the other gamekeepers became jealous. On one particular tragic day, Herne and Richard went off on their own pursuit of the prized buck, but instead of being easily subdued, the buck gored the horse of the king. As the king fell from his horse, the buck attempted to strike a killing blow, but Herne leapt between the buck and the king with his knife out. Herne delivered a lethal blow to the deer, not before he himself was mortally wounded. Now gored, Herne lay dying, and the king was distraught. When the rest of the hunting party caught up to Richard and the dying Herne, the king promised a large reward to whoever could restore Herne to life. As Herne prepared to take his last breath, a wizard appeared, promising to bring Herne back from the precipice of death. The king readily agreed, but the other keepers conspired against Herne, asking the wizard to take away the woodland skills that Herne used in service of the king upon his return. The wizard agreed for a price, and Herne was revived after 1 month in stasis. Curiously, the wizard grafted the antlers of the buck killed by Herne onto the keeper's head. Stripped of his woodland skills, the revived Herne went mad and eventually hung himself from a mighty oak tree in the forest, and later became known as Herne's Oak. After this second death, Herne returned to both curse the keepers who had taken his woodcraft away and the forest, causing hunting in Windsor Forest to cease for lack of game. With nothing to hunt, Richard III grew concerned and met with Herne. After the meeting, Herne revealed the duplicity of the other keepers and demanded justice. Richard agreed, and Herne's tormentors hung on the very oak Herne used to take his own life. His quest for vengeance satisfied, Herne took a permanent residence in Windsor Forest, where he leads the hunt of a ghostly presence, often accompanied by other spectral hunters and hunting dogs. There are a few variations on the tale of how Herne the moral of sorry. There are a few variations on the tale of how the moral Herne became Herne the hunter, and most shocking of which has Herne returning after death, so the realm of the living sorry, has Herne returning after death to the realm of the living to seek vengeance upon the English king who defiled his daughter. Other versions of the story have Herne hanging himself to atone from either hunting illegally or committing some other sort of foul deed in Windsor's forest that betrays his king. Whatever the variation, most of these stories involve Herne hanging himself, a noteworthy and that we will come back to later. One of the details that makes the story of Herne so interesting to me is that there is further evidence of the reality of Herne beyond Shakespeare and folklore. Several different versions of Shakespeare's plays have been published over the centuries, and the versions that most of us are familiar with come from the first folio, a collection of his plays published in 1632. An earlier version of The Merry Wives of Windsor from 1602 features a slightly different take on Herne, here called Horne. While he still remains a ghost-like figure in addition to having antlers atop his head, Horne also takes the appearance of a stag. Oft you heard since Horne the hunter died, that women to affright their little children, says that he walks in shape of a great stag. Now for the Falstaff hath been so uh, so de- dis- deceit. Sorry, I'm uh dis say. I have no clue how to pronounce this word. So desaioted, I guess, as that he dares not to venture to the house. Willie sent him word to meet versus the field, disguised like Horne, with huge horns on his head. The spelling of Herne as Horne is most likely not an accident. In the first half of the 16th century, during the reign of King Henry VIII, a uh, permanent currently in British. Sorry, that's not right. A parchment currently in the British Museum tells of a man named Richard Horne, who, along with several compatriots, was caught poaching in Windsor Forest. The punishment for poaching was most often death, and if that death involved hanging, it's possible that Horne is the last one of Henry's myth. Reichard could be the original ghostly source of Herne, or perhaps his name was on added to an already existing myth. Herne's oak was the name given to a particular oak tree in Windsor Forest, where Herne was alleged to have hung himself. Honestly, the tree itself was cut down in 1796, most likely by mistake, but its location was marked on the map dating back to 1742, where it's called Sir John of Falstaff's Oak, named after a character in Shakespeare's play. A few pieces of wood survive from Herne's oak, along with drawings of what it looked like in the 18th century. Upon the tree's demise, the local newspapers, the Whitehall Evening Post, published a poem commemorating the oak that mighty Henry walked around. Walked round. Something I'm just gonna add in here. I recently learned that Shakespeare did not like Jews, uh, and often portrayed something bad happening to them in his plays. Anyway, back to the book. If Herne is more if Herne is more than a figure to folklore and literature, where Midas' true origins lie. Instead of looking at figures such as Pan and Cernunnos, I often prefer to look further afield at deities whose stories contain at least a little bit of Herne's myth. While it's popular to think of being one of the homes of the Celts, other pagan groups settled there too. The area around Windsor Forest was settled exclusively by one of those groups, the Vikings, who imported their own myths and legends. One of those myths involved the god Woden or Odin hanging himself uh, from Egg Yggdrasil in the world tree in order to gain the wisdom of the runes. If Herne is directly related to an ancient pagan deity, it's far more likely to be Odin than Cernunnos, an idea I first came across in the work of Eric Fitch, author of In Search of Herne the Hunters. The two deities share being hung from a tree, and both figures have been linked to spectral hunting parties. The Vikings settled in England during the 9th and 10th centuries, which means the figure known as Herne would have spent less time underground before being written about than if he were related to Cernunnos. Perhaps myths of Odin mixed with ghost stories of executed poachers, creating the figure we know today as Herne. We'll never know for sure, but this seems likely to me. Working with Herne. The tales of Herne's origins reveal a figure focused on vengeance and atonement. He's vengeful towards those who have wronged him, either his fellow keepers or the king, or he seeks atonement for his past misdeeds. Among modern witches who worship Herne, he tends to be worshipped as a rather generic version of the horn god or as Cernunnos, but I think it's worth nothing these two additional characteristics that make Herne unique in the animals of horned and antler uh, deities. Certainly, a figure associated with forests is very much an earthly deity, but to look at or honor only that part of Herne feels short-sighted. If the deities we worship are real deities, then it behooves us to explore their mythologies in order to better understand them. Herne is more than just another name people sometimes use in place of Cernunnos. He's a completely different god, born of a different shore during a different period of time. And if he is connected to Odin, he's also god of wisdom and prophecy, in addition to his other attributes. Because of Herne's unique qualities as a horned deity, I often call upon him when seeking justice or trying to right a wrong in my life. While I'm not someone to actively go and toss curses and hexes at others, I do believe in defending myself and shining light on the truth when falsehoods have gotten in the way of it. Absolutely. Several years ago, an old acquaintance of mine began spreading rumors about me and calling me a liar. When circumstances like that arise, it's time for witchcraft, and on this particular occasion, I looked to Herne for help. Herne's witch bottle spell. Traditionally, witch bottles are buried under windows and doors to reflect any negative energy directed toward a particular household. This spell is a variation of the classic witch bottle and sends all negativity, lies, and bad deeds back to the person instigating those things. It's not necessary to know who the source of your problems is to work this spell, and it might even be more effective if you don't. If you if you name the wrong person to receive the negative energies being directed at you, then that person will suffer needlessly. So certainty is a must. Here are the items needed for this spell: a small jar with a wide mouth, such as a spaghetti jar, a small length of chain or cord wrapped around the object representing the cause of your problems. I recommend using something that resembles a chain, such as a small chain link necklace, sometimes representing the cause of your problems. If you know the exact individual who is at fault, a painted picture of them works perfectly well, as does writing their name on a sheet of paper. If you don't know their name, that's fine too. It In that case, just use something that represents the cause of the problem, such as pictures of lips. If you're trying to fend off gossip, the word lies. If someone is trying, if someone is lying about you. 7 shiny dimes. A reflective item, such as a very small mirrored item or a coin of rock wrapped tightly in the piece of aluminum foil. Aluminum foil is an easy way to create a reflective surface for your magic. Stones of perfection, such as a black thermaline, black Audi, black obsidian, hematite, fluorite, smoky quartz, jet, or amethyst. If there's a stone you associate with protection that is not listed here, you can use that too. Vinegar. Something from your body. This can be a strand of hair, a fingernail, or urine. If you take, if you want to take, uh, if you want to take your magic up a notch, you can also use vaginal secretion, semen, or blood, including menstrual blood. Anything else you want to add? Everything is on the table with a witch bottle. A liberation to offer to Herne after the spell is complete. I suggest ale or cider. If you prefer to do magic in sacred places, begin by casting a circle and calling the quarters. Once everything is set to your liking, invoke Herne. I called to Herne to assist me today with my magic. May justice be swift, and may those who have tried to wrong me feel a full feel the full burn of their misdeeds. Let me start over. I call to Herne to assist me today with my magic. May justice be swift, and may those who have tried to wrong me feel the full brunt of their misdeeds. I ask for the protection and assistance of the great hunter Herne. Lend your power to mine so that I may be free from my tormentors, and those who work against me shall be silenced, so mote it be. Start by taking whatever it is that you're using to represent the negativity being sent against you and wrapping it in your small chain. If you can tie the chain into a knot around the object, all the better. If you are using a picture or a small piece of paper, inserting that into one of the links of the chain and then tying the chain with a knot will work nicely here. As you wrap a knot, as you wrap and knot the chain, speak these words. With Herne's chains I bind you. To stop the damage you do, all harm toward me will cease, and all will be at peace. Repeat the above 4 lines as you wrap your chain around the object representing your troubles. When you reach the end of the chain, speak these 2 lines. In the name of Herne, I cast a spell. My will be done, so mote it be. While wrapping your chain around the object representing your troubles, imagine all the negativity being directed toward you ceasing. Visualize mouths being shut, whispers not being shared, and only good coming your way. When you are through with this mini binding, put the chain and bind your item into your witch bottle. Pick up the dimes you have gathered for this ritual. Notice their reflective surface, the image, any negative energy being directed towards you, being reflected back to its source. Think about yourself being surrounded by good luck and being free from all negativity and evil thoughts. Slowly place the dimes into your witch bottle while reciting the following. The 1 dime for good luck in all I do, the 2nd dime for my wishes to come true, the 3rd for being seen as I am, 4 to stop all who would curse and damn, a 5th to reflect that which vexes their will turned into these witches' hexes. Drop in the 6th dime. 7 for the power of the Horn One Herne. Protect from me all that which I spurn. Horn One, protector and power. Bless the work with your earthen glower. Now pick up your small mirror and reflective item and again visualize any unwanted energy being directed at you, being sent back to the source. As you place that item in your witch bottle, say, I use against you what you would use to hurt me, though Herne shall bounce back to you, so mote it be. Pick up the stone you are using to represent protection. Feel its energy and let the energy throb in the palm of your hand for a moment. Visualize yourself being free from strife and worry and anything that would harm you. See yourself safe and secure in your home and with your loved ones. Know that you are loved and that there are people out there who have a vested interest in your welfare. Then, when you are ready, add the stone to your witch's bottle and say, I shall be free from strife and secure. With the power of Herne, this I ensure. I usually fill my witch's bottles with vinegar and some small amount of urine. If you want to use strictly vinegar, that's great. If you are using vinegar in conjuration with something else, Be sure to fill your bottle all the way up in this next step. If you want to add something else to your witch's bottle other than that which represents you, do so before adding the vinegar. The idea behind using vinegar to fill up your witch bottle is to make sure the negative energy that will bounce back to your tormentor is rotten and nasty. People tend to stop being assholes when that sort of behavior results in bad luck for them. As you fill your bottle with vinegar, say the following: vile, sour, disgusting, unwanted, and rude, I send back to you what you used to intrude. May you be the victim of your own evil and malice. The scales of justice I now put back in balance. Finally, add your piece of hair, fingernail, or urine to the witch bottle and say, through the power of Herne, this bottle serves only me. From torments and pain I shall soon be free. All sent toward me now goes back to its source. That is the way of my magic, a path and the course. The path and the course. With the power of Herne, god of justice and right, I now have my tormentors in my sight. All will be good. From negativity I shall be free. This spell is now cast. I say, so mote it be. Witches' bottles are usually buried under windows and doorways, since it's not a typical witch bottle. Best to keep it at your altar for as long as you need it. When those who wish to harm you have ceased working against you, take the bottle off your altar and bury its contents outside, or pour the contents somewhere outside where they are unlikely to be disturbed for a while, such as near a bush. The bottle can be recycled or reused after it's been washed. When the spell is over, be sure to thank Herne with some sort of offering. Ideally, you should pour out your offering near an oak tree in his honor. If that's not an option, simply place your offering in a chalice or bowl. Direct the god to it and place the offering on your altar for at least a few hours, or better yet, a day. Removing the offering, thank Herne again, and dispose of the cup's contents. Ellen of the Ways. Currently, one of the most popular faces of the horn god belongs to a female version of the deity, a reindeer antler goddess known as Ellen of the Ways. Although Ellen was virtually unheard of before the 1980s, it's now possible to buy statues, t-shirts, and books featuring her online and in many witch shops. Much like Cernunnos, there are no myths that feature Ellen by name or with her antlers, but unlike Cernunnos, there's also no archaeological evidence of Ellen of the Ways. The story of Ellen of the Ways is unlike that of any other deity featured in this book. Ellen is what I think of as a revealed deity. She was brought into the light by reading between the lines of mythology and through personal noises or gnosis, meaning direct contact with the deity by a human being. The revealer of Ellen is British goddess historian Caroline Wise, whose essays and later books on the subject of Ellen of the Ways from the backbone of the deity's mythology and character. According to Wise, Ellen of the Ways is the British goddess of the natural world. Fertility, gardens, underground sources of water, ley lines, roads, uh, migratory routes, and not surprisingly, reindeer. Since Ellen is the goddess of such a vast array of ideas and energies, it's not surprising that she's become popular since she was introduced to the modern world in 1986, the year Wise first published information on the subject of Ellen. The biggest piece of evidence for the existence of Ellen in the ancient world comes from the Welsh collection of stories and tales known as the uh, Mag, sorry, Mag Mabinogion in the United States and the Mabinogi in the United Kingdom. The stories that make up the Mag- Mabinogion were compiled in the 12th and 13th centuries and are based on much older oral legends. The first written versions of the Mabinogion, apart from a few fragments, appears towards the end of that time frame. The stories that make up this collection deal primarily with heroes and kings, but it's revealed by many that those heroes and kings were once most likely Welsh Celtic deities. The Mag Mabinogion also contains characters familiar to us from other mythologies, such as King Arthur, along with historical figures such as Magnus Maximus, uh, 335 to 388 CE, who ruled the western half of the Roman Empire in the late 4th century. There's a beautiful picture of the goddess depicting she has like face paint aside from her makeup, I guess. Um, and she has antlers with very long hair, and she's wearing a cloak. It is a mag Magbit. It's in the Mabinogion story of Maximus, who is referred to in the text of Maxin Weldig, that Ellen appears according to the tale known as the Dream of Maxin Weldig. Maximus dreams of a beautiful red-haired woman who lives in a faraway land. Being an being an empire, he sends out men all across the world to find this woman. After much searching, they find her in present-day Wales. This is, of course, Ellen, or sometimes Helen. Uh, and once she's located, Maximus travels with haste to be at her side. The two fall in love, and Ellen's father is given dominion over the island of Britain, and 3 new castles are built in honor of Ellen. Ellen also convinces her new husband to build an extensive series of roads in her native land to make the defense of Britain easier. Before Ellen and Maximus can live happy ever after, the Emperor has his throne stolen from him while he's away. But thanks to his new allies, he quickly regains it and gives the Britons the province of Brittany and Gaul, present day France. In Wales, Ellen, the wife of Maximus, has become Saint Ellen and is thought to have built the first Christian churches in Wales. While held as a saint in Wales, Ellen has never formally been canonized by Roman uh, Catholic Church. Ellen is the patron saint of roads, and her builders a tidbit that aligns nicely with her role in the Mag Mabinogion. Uh, the ancient Roman road sent Sarn Helen. Where did I stop at? The ancient Roman road Sarn Helen is named after Saint Ellen, though the road predates the time of Maximus, more leading more credence to the idea that the Ellen of the Mag uh, Mabinogion was a Celtic Welsh goddess, the Mabinogion, and the story of Ellen as a saint are our best clues to the goddess's ancient existence. In her writings on Ellen of the Ways, Wise offers more justifications from the existence of Ellen in the ancient world. Some of those are problematic, such as the linking Santa's reindeer to Ellen. Santa didn't use reindeer until the 19th century, but a good argument can be made for a goddess of British roads relating to reindeer. As we've already seen in the book, there were female versions of Cernunnos. Could these have possibly been Ellen of the Ways? Wise has always been very adamant that Ellen has reindeer antlers atop her head, and for good reason. Reindeer are the only species of animal where females, in addition to males, grow antlers. Interestingly, males shed their antlers shortly after mating season in November-December, while female reindeer keep their antlers until their calves are born in late spring. Because of this, Santa's reindeer are far more likely to be female than male. The first roads among ancient humans were probably the migratory trails of animals like reindeer. These tracks help link Ellen to reindeer these tracks help link Ellen as a reindeer goddess to her role as a goddess and saint of roads. While the physical and literally, uh, literary evidence of Ellen of the Ways is scant, there's probably good circumstantial case for her being an ancient goddess of some sort. If I find much of the historical evidence of Ellen of the Ways rather dubious, and I urge you to read about Ellen and draw your own conclusions, links are in the bibliography. Though some of the mythology and reasoning was used to establish the existence of Ellen in the modern world feels a bit suspect to me. I don't doubt the existence of the goddess. I've read critics of Wise and Ellen of the Ways call Ellen a made up deity, but I like to think that's far too dismissive. I have friends who have had experiences with Ellen of the Ways, but judging her current popularity, I have to believe there is some sort of collective energy pushing her to a place of prominence. In our society, it's also worth noting that every deity starts from somewhere, and whether it's in the ancient or more modern world is immaterial. As a believer in a truly universal Horn God, I find that Ellen provides another entry into the Horn One's mysteries.